Well, good morning, Northridge. We are glad that you're here this morning. Would you stand, and we're going to sing a little call and response this morning to get started. Stand with us and sing. Do you feel the world is broken? Do you feel the shadows deepen? Do you know that all the darkness stops the light from getting through? Do you wish that you could see it all made new? We do. Is all creation groaning? Is a new creation coming? It is the glory of the Lord to be the light within our midst. Is it good that we remind ourselves of this? Is anyone worthy? Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave, he is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of Does the Father truly love us? Does the Spirit move among us? And does Jesus, our Messiah, move well with us again? Does our God intend to dwell again with us? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave, he is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, he has made us a kingdom and priests to God to reign with the Son. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Is he worthy of Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning. Sorry. A little audible here. We have a little bit of a VBS presentation. We just finished VBS this week, which you may see some people with some tired eyelids. Those were the volunteers. So here you go.
Come on, guys. Hello. So we're going to talk about VBS real fast. But first, we wanted to teach you the fun little saying that we did all week. And so we're going to teach you, and then we'll have the kids do it, and then everybody's going to do it. Okay, so when I say Zoomerang, you say
Zoomeree.
And then when I say God made you,
God made me.
okay, so do y'all want to try it? Ready? Zoomerang.
Zoomeree.
God made you.
God made me.
Woo! Nice. Awesome. So this past week, we got to explore around Australia with our VBS Zoomerang theme. The kids, they got to go to lesson in the eucalypt forest, and then they got to go to missions at the Great Barrier Reef, and then the craft room, that was the Cooper Petty. Took me all week to figure out how to say that. And then games was the Australia coast, and then snack was the Uluru Desert. So they had a whole bunch of fun just exploring around. We had a total of about 40 kids show up and 26 volunteers. Thank you again to the volunteers. If it weren't for you guys, we would not be able to do VBS. We also had a ton of donations from all of you guys. We had plenty of snacks. We had a ton of leftovers. Jody was just giving it to us at the end, like, take these waffle cones. Okay. But yeah, and then at Rock River Rapids last night, we had 242 people show up, so that was really cool. A whole bunch of fun. The kids are just running around going crazy. So now, the kiddos, they're going to tell you some of the truths that we learned this week, so I'm going to pass it on to them. Ready, Kaden?
I am made in God's image.
I am made with amazing design.
I am made with worth.
I am made for a relationship.
I am made for a reason.
Okay, and then they also raised offering this week, and so they raised a total of $291. So that was added to our motorcycle and songbook, so your guys' totals went up. So you guys have 4 more weeks to compete against each other, and I'll give you guys the totals for those two. So the songbook has $339.02, and then the motorcycle, a little slacking a little bit. You guys have $305.11. So 4 weeks left, so keep donating. And the buckets are at the back, I believe, or out there in the, they're out there in the I don't know, foyer, thank you. I don't know what that's called. Okay, so anyway, give it up for our kids who came down to help us.
All right, we have a few things coming up over the next couple weeks. Thursday, July 21st, the Thursday morning ladies' Bible study is going to study The Mothers and Daughters of the Bible Speak by Shannon Bream. And that will go through September 22nd. So 10 a.m., Joyce is here somewhere, I think. Maybe not. Anyway, see Joyce Veenstra about being involved in that group if you want to go through that, walk through that with them. We also have a conversation, this is another Joyce Veenstra thing, another conversation with friends for the vote coming up on August 2nd. That'll take place on July 24th at 5 p.m. It's a bit of a confusing vote at times, and also we want to just have a conversation, a discussion, so that people can gain some clarity with wording and things of this amendment that we're voting about, but also walking through some of our faith and practices. We'll have some elders there, but just a place to really get some information and understanding what we're voting on August 2nd. And then we have actually that night of August 2nd, we have the block party here at our church that we get to reach out to the community, engage in fellowship with them, also to give some school supplies out as school supplies start. So we hope you're able to come to that. And then if you've walked by the kitchen, you know the next announcement, because you've smelled homemade meatballs and some tomato sauce. We probably didn't smell the pasta. But we have the Friends Women putting on the spaghetti luncheon today after service. Everyone's invited. We'll have little donation jars for a free will offering as the meal goes on. So please join them in feasting today after church. So with that, please greet your neighbor, and then we'll get continued into worship.
Saturday was silent, as surely as it was through. Since when has it possible ever stopped you? Fridays disappoint, the Sunday's empty too. Since when has it possible ever stopped you? Yeah, this is the sound of the dry bones rattling. Yeah, this is the phrase make a dead man walk again. Yeah, open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Yeah, this is the sound of the dry bones rattling. Sing Pentecostal fire. Pentecostal fire. Stirring something new. Swearing I couldn't run out of miracles anytime soon. In resurrection power is running in my veins too. I believe there's another miracle here in this room. Oh yeah, this is the sound of dry bones rattling. Yeah, this is the praise make a dead man walk again. Now open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Yeah, this is the sound of dry bones rattling. My God is able to save and deliver and heal and restore anything that He wants to. Just ask the man who was thrown on the bones of Elijah. There's an still, the rage in me to still every wave at your name. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. 'Cause your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
Your love has ravished my heart and taken me over, taken me over. And all I want is to be with you forever, with you forever. So pull me a little, just pull me a little closer, take me a little deeper. I wanna know your heart, I wanna know your heart. 'Cause love is so much sweeter than anything I've tasted. I wanna know your heart, I wanna know your heart.
Take me a little deeper. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. 'Cause his love is so much stronger than anything I faced. And I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. Your heart. Your heart.
I just wanna be with you. I just wanna be with your heart. Your heart. Your heart. Oh. One more time, Northridge. Pull me. So pull me a little closer.
Take me a little deeper. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. 'Cause his love is so much stronger than anything I faced. And I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart.
Jesus, we want to know your heart this morning. We want to be close to your heart. Lord, make us more like you. It's our heart's desire that we would come to you willing for you to mold us, to shape us into your image. And Lord, when we fail and when we fall short, woo us back to you, God. Remind us that it's your desire that we be close to your heart. Thank you, Jesus, for the way that you love us and we just don't deserve. We lift your name high because you're worthy of our worship this morning. Amen. You may be seated. Well, trick, you're not done with me yet. John 13, 12 through 17. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his cloak and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. But now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. No servant is greater than his master, nor a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. So I want to start out this morning with a quick question. Why are you here? Seriously, why did you get up this morning, get dressed up, or at least get out of your PJs, grab your family, maybe your Bible, and drive here to Northridge Friends Church, 2655 North Bollinger? Why are you here? Maybe it's because you like church. Maybe it's because you've always been here. But maybe there's a better question here. Why come to church at all? At all. Why not Netflix? Football. Finish up Stranger Things if you haven't gotten to the last episode.
Maybe start Yellowstone. Everybody keeps talking to me about Yellowstone. I should go watch it, apparently. Or like Catherine would, if she could. I love you, babe. Just sleep in. I swear, my wife actually loves sleep more than she loves me and almost as much as she loves Jesus. It's okay. I talked to her before I said this, but she also kind of looked at me and said, but seriously, why not sleep in? Why would you choose to roll out of bed every week, some of you for your entire life, and choose to come to church? For me, I've spent almost all of those of my 29 years of life right here in this room, sitting right about where my parents are, or when I hit college, for some reason, I shifted up here to where Kat and I sit normally. I think it's because it's easier to get up and down off the stage for worship, but why church? Why Northridge? Is it because we're friends? Because really, on a typical Sunday, we don't seem too drastically different than any other Protestant or evangelical church, really. Is it the preaching? Hope not. If it's the people, great. Maybe it's the music. Maybe it's the childcare. Maybe we're close to your home. Maybe you're here against your will. Blink twice if you're here against your will. If you just write "help me" on a comment card and slip it in the thing in the back, we will send a highly trained group of stealth elders to come and save you. But seriously, I think we all have had a season of life where we've been drugged to church, whether that was by a spouse or a parent or a grandparent, maybe even a friend. You've been drugged to church. Why come at all? You can read lots of books by great pastors. Podcasts are great. You can grab coffee with a few Christian friends, and then you can have that community piece that we're always talking about. You could always just read your Bible by yourself at home. Why attend church at all? Have you ever really stopped and thought about why you come to church? Sit with that for just a second. I'm going to come back to it. See, today I'm supposed to talk to you about the last of our values of Northridge, that being servant leadership. So here's what our value states. Servant leadership, following the example of Christ, the greatest in God's kingdom, who is the servant of all. Servant leadership. Personally, I always cringe when I hear servant leadership. I've read many a book on leadership. I've listened to podcasts by people like Craig Rochelle or Jocko Willink. I've had plenty of conversations about it. I've been parts of men's groups who discuss it. Leadership is a very important part of the Christian life. Taking charge, leading people who are struggling to unify around a common goal or purpose, choosing to stand tall on your principles, choosing the road less traveled, and asking people to follow you are all parts of being a good leader. I'm not saying that leadership is bad at all, but this phrase servant leadership just is not my favorite phrase for lots of reasons. Jesus was a leader, he was also a servant. He wasn't one or the other, he was both. But very seldom do you see Jesus doing both at the same time. Almost never. In the passage that we began with, Jesus was technically leading, I guess, but the purpose was an example of laying everything down and humbling yourself and choosing to serve someone in a radical way. But when he called people, when he stood up against corrupt religious leaders, when he stood up to the mob and their victims, when he preached and taught the people and his disciples, he was leading. But when he was washing the feet of the disciples, when he was walking the road to the cross, even the very act of the incarnation, of God choosing to lay all of his power down and choosing to walk like us and with us, I don't think God was leading at all. He was just serving. When he was breaking bread, when he was choosing to touch and heal the leper, or dining with the tax collector, was he leading or was he serving? You can make the argument that it was a little bit of both, but here's my point. Servanthood is not leadership. Servanthood is a race to the bottom. It's a race to the back of the line. See, we can be cute and say that I'm leading people by sacrificing first, or I'm leading people to the back of the line. But see, if you're leading people to the back of the line, then you have a line behind you, and then you're just leading again. Right? Servanthood isn't leadership, it's sacrifice. It's sacrifice. To be the lead of something literally means that you're out in front. By definition, servant leadership doesn't really make a lot of sense. To me, I believe it's wrong to say servant leadership. We've talked about this upside down kingdom, that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. But when calling it servant leadership, I feel like that's the busy business, hustle and grind thing that we talk about constantly, infiltrating the church. And I think it's a little bit dangerous. We have to be careful with that. Nowhere in the Bible will it refer to Jesus' servanthood as leadership. It will refer to Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, who is a leader, and it will talk about his servanthood. But you will never hear this conglomeration of two very antithetical concepts: servant leadership. I believe God calls us all to be leaders in one way or another, to stand up for what's right, to seek to have others join and follow us, to lead our families well, often to lead coworkers, or if you're a business owner, your own employees, to lead our children, to lead at church. These are all places where we lead. And in each of these, we should be bold and intentional. We should seek to lead the way that Christ did. But when there's no one watching, when it's just us and we're making the choice to sacrifice anyway, when no one knows that we're sacrificing, and when our servanthood isn't witnessed, is that servant leadership or is that just serving? It's just serving. I know that it can seem like I often get into the semantic weeds, but words are important. How we understand the world around us is based on our vocabulary, on words. And what we think about who we are and who God is affects the way that we live our lives. Things that we believe to be true come out in how we act. So if we really get stuck in this idea of servant leadership, that I always need to be worried when I'm serving about how I'm leading and if I'm leading well, we get off into the weeds. When I'm serving, I just want to serve. I want to serve for no other reason than to serve. Leadership is important, and Jesus was a leader. Serving is important. Jesus was a servant. I just don't see the value in always trying to push them together. Okay? We can move on. Matthew 20, 25 through 28 says this. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." I cannot find a single place in the Bible that equates Jesus' plan of radical love, of servanthood, of laying his life down with leadership. He is our King of Kings and Lord of Lords, but in nearly every case that Jesus himself talks about what he came to do, it is nearly always radical servanthood. Service and sacrifice, even sacrifice unto death on the cross. For you and for me, for the sinner, for the worst among us, asking nothing in return just because he loves us. So as I was running some of these thoughts through my wife, which again, I do often, she asked me why I always get so hyped up from the pulpit and I get louder and louder, and I think she used the word yell when I'm preaching. And I told her this: I tend to be a little bit of a contrarian. If you haven't figured that out from my preaching, you haven't been listening. I don't like to go with the grain. I want to go against the grain. I don't want to take the conventional wisdom that I've always been taught just at face value. My mom's nodding her head because she knows, because she raised me, I need to test it. I need to see how far it will bend, if it will break, because I want to know if it's true. And we should always do that. We should always go back to the Word, query the Spirit. Is what I'm hearing about the world true? I don't think I'm alone in this, because Jesus spent almost all of his time saying, you've heard it said, you understand it to be this way, but I tell you, you got it wrong. Everybody around you, the religious leaders, the teachers, your mom, your dad, they're telling you that my kingdom's this way, and I'm telling you they're wrong. My kingdom's actually over here. You didn't get it. Let me help you understand it. I want to ask Jesus, is this right? Am I really understanding this correctly? That is often why I get so hyped up, because I have spent time asking Jesus, is this servant leadership thing make sense? And to me, I don't think it does. There are so many of these pieces of Christianese that we learn as we're children, and we just keep repeating. One of my favorite ones is season of life. Go up and walk up to anybody in their regular life and talk about a season of life, and they'll be like, that dude's a Christian. Nobody else calls it a season of life, okay? That's Christianese, all right? And servant leadership is one of those pieces of Christianese that it just irks me a little bit. If we start our understanding of servanthood from a position of leadership, it starts leading us down a certain path. Well, in order to serve, I need to have a position from which to serve. I need to join a team. I need to lead a team. Maybe I need to lead a Bible study. Then I can serve from there. I'm saying if we start with servanthood, if all we ever do is serve and we never lead anything in any way, shape, or form, that should be enough. If all I ever do is sacrifice for the people around me and I get nothing in return, not even a follower, that should be enough. If we're going to use this idea of servant leadership, it's really specifically to those who are called to lead, to follow Christ's example, and to humble themselves to serve those who they are leading. There is something true in there. But the truth is that every time we serve, we shouldn't consider ourselves as leading. We should just serve. So what does this have to do with my beginning question that I started off with? Why come to church? Let me explain it this way. One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever been given about my marriage is the 70% rule. We should all strive to give 70%. Do 70% of the compromise, 70% of the dishes, 70% of the housework, the diaper duty. Write the first card, send the flowers first, expecting that you're going to do 70% of the work. Admit you're wrong 70% of the time. Serve 70%. And when you do, this crazy thing happens. Everybody's needs get met. Because if I'm giving 70% and Catherine's giving 70%, I don't know if you know this, but the math is we're giving over 100%. I can do that math, Mom, I promise. You both get to be happy. You both serve and are served. If we both do 70% of the work, then we can thrive without this constant battle for fairness. If we approach our relationships, marriage and otherwise, with this idea of 50-50, you bring 50, I bring 50, what happens on the bad days? What happens when I don't have 50% to bring? What happens when my partner has gotten home from a 16-hour shift at the hospital and she's just wiped? If I'm sitting there saying, where are my slippers? Have you done the dishes? Where is my dinner? Seriously, I set myself up for failure and disappointment when I expect a 50-50 fairness compromise here. I was discussing this with Mike Foster, and he was telling me a story about a student who had come from out of state to join in one of his classes while he was at Berkeley. This student, when discussing the way that he prepared himself and his heart for church, he asked himself 2 questions. What can I bring? Who can I serve? One more time. This college-age young man said, every time that I prepare myself to go to worship, I'm going to ask myself 2 questions. What can I bring? Who can I serve? Can you imagine if a group of 250 people, I don't know, the size of Northridge Friends Church, got together, got up every Sunday morning and asked themselves, what can I bring and who can I serve? What do you think would happen? Seriously, what do you think would happen? What if we weren't waking up hoping that one person that I don't really like stays home, or at the very least stays on the opposite side of the sanctuary from me? Don't even engage in conversation. I don't want to talk to you. What if we weren't planning on showing up late because I don't like the worship leader who's leading or the style of the songs? Or, right now, what if you weren't picking and choosing when you come to church based on who's going to be preaching, which is why some people aren't here today? Maybe most importantly, what if every week we strived to come seeking to serve and not to be served? I'm not being cute. I mean it in a very real way. If we sought to show up every week ready to lay everything down at the foot of Jesus and subsequently at the foot of each other, what would this church look like? If we were seeking the good of those around us instead of ourselves, if we gave 70%, then what happens on the weeks when things do get hard? What happens on the week when I don't have 70% to bring? This was one of those weeks. I had my truck stolen, and then we found it, but it was damaged. And then in the process of all of that, I had the window out of my car that has no AC busted out. So I've been driving around in a car with no AC and 100-degree heat, and one of the windows is missing. So I can't even roll up the windows and bake. I'm going down Kellogg at 65 miles. And I drive all over Wichita for work. It's been a miserable week. It's draining. So what happens when I come to church every week in that state? Always at a deficit. Always looking for somebody to come serve me. It doesn't work. We cannot function that way. If we come here and our primary goal is me, I need, every time we set ourselves up for disappointment. That marriage relationship, that idea that every time that I have the strength to muster it, I'm giving 70%. That great old saying, it all comes out in the wash, people. Then when I need more, when I am broken and I'm bruised and I'm tired and I need the love of my community, there are other people who are saying, I got you, man. You know what? It's been a good week for me. The Lord has blessed me this week. Let me pray for you. Let me be there for you. Let me be the hands and feet to you when you need it. Everyone ends up feeling loved and cared for. No one goes home asking where the love was. If we operated church seeking to serve every time, then when we do fail, and Lord knows that we will, then when our cup is so bone dry that we couldn't even imagine helping another soul, then we get to rely on the community. Like Moses, we have that support to hold us up when we just don't have the strength to keep going. This is where we come to my question. Why do you come to church? What is your motivation? What got you out of bed and caused you to get in your car and come here to Northridge Friends Church of all places this morning? To a worship service of all things. I want to tell you, if you came today because you had to, that's okay. If you came today because someone drug you here, that's okay. If you came today because you had to, it's okay. If you came today because you need something, you're looking for something, that's okay too. If you came today because this is the only form of social interaction you get, maybe join the Y. I don't know. Something. Go to a McDonald's, chat with people. I don't know. I'm kidding, but hear me. This can't be all of us every week. Our goal should be seeking to come to pour out, not to be filled up every week, because it's just not sustainable. There are so many today who see church as something built to serve them, and they're not wrong. The church is here to serve. It absolutely is. But if all we ever do is stay with the church until the day that you don't quite feel served, if we just then move on to the next one, we're not just missing out on the chance to serve people, we're missing out on the point of church. Our goal, our design is to embody Christ's hands and feet to one another. If I want to serve like he did, I have to actually serve. One of the things that I love about the Chosen series is their ability to translate Jesus' heart and love for people to the screen in such a captivating way. I'm sitting in with the youth watching this, and I'm kind of sitting in the back, and every time I'm going, these boys are going to rip me alive if they see that I've been crying. Every time. When Jesus first has his interaction with Mary Magdalene, and he's communicating to her, I see you. And I know you. I don't know what it is, but the way that they've done this cinematically, it just grips my heart. And I feel Jesus' love reaching through the screen to me. I'm telling you, I want to look at people the way Jesus did. I want to talk to people the way Jesus did. I want to serve people the way Jesus did. To make those around me feel like they are the most beautiful and necessary and loved person on earth in that moment. Maybe it's just me, but if I'm trying to embody servant leadership in those moments, I'm going to fail. Man, I just want to serve. That's all I want to do. I want to serve. Okay, so Northridge, we've spent 12 weeks talking about this list of values that we hold to be true about who Northridge is and who we should strive to be. And I hope that this series has helped you get to know who Northridge believes we should be. Each of these values is important, and together they create this beautiful picture. But as we sat together to talk about who our next pastor might be and what they might look like, our pastoral search team asked us to do something. They asked us to look inward for just a second, hold up a mirror to ourselves, to our values, and do what I was talking about earlier. What's true about this? Where are we succeeding? Where are we failing? How do we communicate who we are to whoever that next pastor is going to be? And there were some things that we feel like Northridge embodies very, very well. And there were some where we felt like we had some growing to do. See, the preaching team wanted to preach about these things because, try as we might, we aren't always living up to all of what we ourselves say we should be. Servant leadership, Christ-honoring worship, caring fellowship, generous stewardship, intensive discipleship, loving friendship, and a mission-focused lifestyle. These are a great way to describe who we think we should be. But we all know we're not there yet, and we've got some growing to do. These are goals that we want to achieve together. But I think there is one common thread and theme through all of them that I can pull on, and it forces us to ask this question. This passage that we read earlier this year during Immerse really sums it up well. In the first book of Chronicles, David is asking the owner of this land if he might take the land to build an altar and make a sacrifice to the Lord according to something the angel had asked him to do. And their conversation goes like this. In 1 Chronicles 21, 23 through 25, Araunah said to David, "Take it. Let my lord the king do whatever pleases him. Look, I will give the oxen for the burnt offerings, the threshing sledges for the wood, and the wheat for the grain offering. I will give all of this." But King David replied to Araunah, "No, I insist on paying the full price. I will not take for the Lord what is yours or sacrifice a burnt offering that costs me nothing. Servanthood, this race to the bottom, is supposed to cost us something. It's not supposed to be easy. Just like the widow's mite, it's more important to God that we're giving something out of a sacrifice, that it does cost us something. Jesus said in Luke 14, 26 through 27, if anyone comes to me and he does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. And I don't think Jesus is literally saying you should hate your family, but that you should consider them nothing in comparison to the love you have for Christ. That like so many people here, we should consider them gods. You should be willing to say goodbye to your own family, to say you belong to God. You go join that mission field halfway around the globe. Or in some cases, it's the opposite, that we say, I believe so strongly that this is the way I'm supposed to go, that it's okay if my family disowns me. I will shed everything for the sake of the gospel. God wants our everything. He wants Northridge to care so little for our own way, our own desires, that we would be willing to serve even unto death for those around us. It's going to cost us something. Otherwise, it's probably not really worth anything. If we operated the way that Christ did, radical service to one another, can you imagine how fed we would all be? That's the upside down kingdom that I'm looking for. Not trying to lead everything in a circle to the back of the line, which then I'm just leading people, so now I'm back at the front of the line, and this like semantic game, but a kingdom where we all sacrifice so radically and care so deeply for the people around us and next to us, that they experience God's love in such a radical way that this messed up, lost, and hurting world looks over at us, at Northridge Friends Church, and takes notice. Those Christians over there, Northridge Friends Church, man, they're different. They aren't squabbling. They aren't infighting. It's not a constant battle. They really love each other. And I think I want to be a part of that. All of these values, I believe, are pushing us towards the idea of servanthood, of sacrifice, of choosing the hard way on purpose. Following Jesus' example of servanthood, not seeing his status as something to be proud of, he humbled himself unto death, even death on the cross, to save you and to save me. Even while I was wallowing in my sin, God forgave me. So God, forgive me when I come here with any desire to do anything less than worship and to serve those around me. Northridge, I hope that we can start waking up on Sunday morning or heading to church Wednesday night or whenever we're going to gather and start with the questions, what can I bring and who can I serve? Lay everything else down, every other want, every other preference and burden and hurt. Come to the place where we just come to serve. If we could figure out how to do that together as a community, that's when we become that shining city on a hill. Let's let that light shine before men and see what God can do with that light. I'll leave you with this. Philippians 2, 1 through 8. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Would you bow your heads with me? God, I believe that it really is our fervent prayer as Northridge Friends Church that we would embody who you are, that we would desire to be your hands and feet first to each other and then to the world. So, Lord, as we venture off that path, as we get into these squabbles, as we get into disagreements and frustrations, Lord, as we wake up ready to come meet together as Northridge, Lord, I pray that your Holy Spirit would write on our hearts and on our minds these questions. Who can I serve? What can I bring? Where can I sacrifice? Because God, you've told us that that's the good life. When we choose sacrifice, when we choose love, you've told us that's the good life. And Lord, when we fall short, and that's hard, and there's days that we just don't have it to give, Lord, I pray that the rest of us would lift that person up. That we would have the grace to walk alongside each other as we figure out this thing called the Christian life. God, thank you so much for your Spirit being here as we've worshiped, as we've spent time together, Lord. We thank you and we love you. Amen. Well, in that Quaker way, we are going to have some quiet time this morning. I've got some prompts for you. Again, this is a time that we wait on the Spirit. We invite the Holy Spirit to speak to us and through us. And so if the Holy Spirit just wants to speak to you, that's okay. And if nobody has anything to say, that's okay. Our desire would be that as Quakers, if there is something that the Spirit's leading you to say that you just can't help but say, I invite you, we'll bring a microphone around, we'll hand you the mic, and we'll have you share that. But again, I pray that you would just sit here, wait on the Spirit, and ask yourselves some of these questions. Thank you, guys.
How Jesus said that we should honor the Lord's Day. And that's why I come for corporate worship. It's just wonderful.
Are all hearts clear? Would you stand with us and sing?
Make me a vessel of your peace. Where there is war, let fighting cease. All that divides us, come reconcile us. Make me a vessel of your peace. Make me a vessel of your love. Where there is hatred, break it up. All creeds and colors bind us together. Make me a vessel of your love. And pour me out, pour me out, pour me out, God, wherever I am, wherever I go. Make me a vessel of your hope. Make me a vessel of your hope. Where there's a dead, come wake me up. A new horizon, I feel it rising. Make me a vessel of your hope. Pour me out, pour me out, pour me out, God, wherever I am, wherever I go. Pour me out, pour me out, pour me out, God, wherever I am, wherever I go. And like a rushing river, let mercy flow through my heart to my world. Like a rushing river, let mercy flow through my heart to my world. Like a rushing river, let mercy flow through my heart to my world. Like a rushing river, let mercy flow through my heart to my world. Pour me out, pour me out, pour me out, God, wherever I am, wherever I go. Pour me out, pour me out, pour me out, God, wherever I am, wherever I go. You are dismissed.